everyone. I'm Rabbi Jill Hammer, and this is the Mystics Room. And we are here today. We have the privilege to talk with Indian Jewish artist Siona Benjamin, a Jewish artist creating cross-cultural and transcultural art. Siona has an MFA in painting and in theater set design and is exhibited all around the world. Was awarded a Fulbright Fellowship in 2011 to India and a second one in 2016 and 17 to Israel. And she has been written about in newspapers. She's been exhibited in both Jewish and wider contexts. And I am really, really excited. And we have some history. In fact, I had the great privilege of having some of Siona's art in my recent book, The Omer Calendar of Biblical Women. So I am very, very excited, Siona, to have you here on the Mystics Room. And yeah, please say hello and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Rabbi Jill. I'm a big fan and admirer of you and your work for many, many years. And it's my honor and privilege to be invited to be included in your new book. I was very amazed and pleased and very, very flattered. And so, I'm a big admirer of yours. And I think that your feminist work and your work in the Jewish tradition as a feminist and as a shaman and as a Jewish priestess, so to speak, is amazing.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. And I really see you as in that same tradition because there are so many powerful women priestesses, sacred feminine figures in your art. So I feel so much resonance with you and the work that you do. And I'd love to, maybe just to give our audience context, maybe just tell a little bit about how you got started on art and maybe a little about the topics and the images that you choose and what they mean to you.
So just a few images, like, I'm a Beni Israel Jew from India. My family dispersed mostly to Israel and America, but my parents remained in India. So most of my family is now in Israel and some in America. I'm also an American living in New Jersey, but I still recall these ornate synagogues from my childhood, the oil lamps, the velvet covered Torahs. Having grown up in a predominantly Hindu Muslim society, being raised Jewish, but being educated in Catholic and Zoroastrian schools, and now living in America, this kind of like spiritual, borderland that I kind of inhabit, is something that really influenced my work. So just to give you, this is like a picture of my aunt and her family, just to see Indian Jewish faces. The entire family immigrated to Israel. This is my mom putting henna on the hands of her sister-in-law. People say henna and Jews. Well, Middle Eastern, Eastern, Asian Jews, we have traditions like this. I didn't grow up eating gefilte fish and matzo ball soup. So I grew up, eating a lot of spicy Indian Jewish coconut curries and stuff like that. And so here is the Indian Jewish bride with the traditional henna ceremony. These are my parents, actually, just so you to see. My mother in a white sari, but then henna on her hands, and she's wearing gloves, and she's wearing Indian gold jewelry. So this mix and melange of cultures that happen. But I think this happens in every possible Jewish culture around the world. So people always say, like, how come you guys eat curries? I say, well, being Polish Jews, how come you eat pierogies? So it's just that whatever the Jewish community has lived in for hundreds of years, they take from that culture, and that is what makes it unique and amazing. So I have a book out right now by co-edited actually edited by Ori Soltis from Georgetown University, and it's called Growing Up Jewish in India. And this is the book that explains the three main Jewish communities. I've written a whole chapter about what it was growing up Jewish in India. And then Ori has actually written a whole chapter on my work and how it is influenced by Indianness, Jewishness, Americanness, all of the above, American pop art, etc. So I'm influenced a lot by Indian miniature paintings. And also, this is an example of an Indian deity slaying a bull with the demon trapped inside it. She and her vehicle, the tiger, is helping combat this evil, so to speak. Many-handed goddesses. And I know, Rabbi Jill, that you are very much into this uh, feminine power, and which comes a lot from a lot of international kind of like Buddhist, even Hindu, and even Jewish traditions of the feminine power, so to speak. And coming from India, these many-handed goddesses, even though they were not Jewish, and in my tradition, they were all around me. And so they kind of affected me and they influenced me in so many ways. I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say how beautiful this image is, and what a powerful image of a goddess.
Yeah. So these are really amazing like goddesses, but I couldn't worship them. I couldn't go, I could see them from afar and acknowledge them and just say, wow, this is so colorful and beautiful. But I was told by my Jewish family never to bow down to it because we come from a monotheistic tradition. So, but it was still there as part of my childhood and growing up. And then, of course, the Jewish and Christian and Islamic illuminated manuscripts, which I studied also later on in art school, which really influenced me. And
Mm,
so, like, in my paintings, I combine the imagery of my past with the role I play in America today, making a mosaic inspired by all of these influences.
mm.
So, I'm a transcultural artist. And so, if you ask what is transculturalism, it is transculturalism will help in artistic and other ways to be a bridge between the traditional and the modern, I believe.
Mm,
So
mm.
the transcultural person is rather like a chameleon where he or she changes colors according to the situation and the environment. And I think all my life I have been that chameleon where I feel like I can change according to the circumstances. So very often I feel very Jewish with Jewish people, and I feel Indian with Indian people, and I feel American with general American people because I've been here for now 37 years. So that chameleon or that sort of uh, transcultural feeling of belonging everywhere and nowhere is kind of a little bit schizophrenic, but at the same time, it is very liberating.
Yes.
It's liberating in a way that it sort of gives you the freedom to sort of like have a borderless land that you can belong to. But then sometimes it feels a little bit like a little lonely, like you don't belong anywhere and you belong everywhere. So it's that duality of feeling that I like to convey in my work.
Tell us a little bit about this image. I mean, this is such a spectacular image because this, the menorah is such a quintessential Jewish image, and this also looks like that many armed goddess we just saw. Tell us a little more maybe about this specific image and what it means to you.
Right. So this is one of my earlier works where I learned the concept of the importance of tikkun ha'olam and how important it is. I started thinking like, what in my work can I contribute to the world to as an artist? I felt a little useless and as artists being like kind of vanity filled. But then I thought like if I make images and powerful images that I don't feel afraid of talking about or showing, then it would make some, and there are consequences, obviously, sometimes because you get reactions from people that you don't want to hear, or it's misinterpreted or whatever it is. But I feel like my work in general, people are understanding it more and more, and I think more and more people are understanding that this transcultural figure, for example, this many-armed menorah, is kind of influenced by my background of the many-armed goddesses that you saw. But
Mm,
she's still Jewish, and she's still very strong in her many-armed menorah hands. And but at the same time, she's kind of like an Indian dancer, and
ah,
she stands atop a lotus. And there's always yin and yang in my work. So there's like a kind of a lion of Judah, so to speak, on one side to maybe show the positive aspects, and there's the forbidden snake on the other side. So it's
yes.
like it's kind of like there's always some danger lurking around the corner, and that is what yin and yang of life presents.
Wow.
And she has little houses on top of her menorah, and the houses have little flames in it. And so she's holding these many homes in the many arms of her menorah hands. She's got a hamsa around her neck. She's got a third eye on her forehead, and she's kind of like an Indian dancer, but she's not. She's still. So this is like has become a very popular image where a lot of people have used it in book covers and you know topics about talking about that transculturalness of she's kind of a hybrid creature
Yes.
that belongs everywhere and nowhere. And so it is now with a buyer of mine actually in Berlin, but and in the US actually they belong both places. But like I feel that this is an earlier work of mine, and this was a breakthrough for me to be able to find out the to celebrate the blue skin of belonging everywhere and nowhere, of being the color of the sky and the ocean, and at the same time celebrate my hybridity instead of wonder what to do with it
Hmm.
and feel confused as to how can I showcase one or the other. But I don't need to showcase one or the other. I can showcase both at the same time because it's all parts of a puzzle.
Yes. I love that. And I love this image. And it's reminding me, you've made many paintings of biblical women. And and in that way, you've connected deeply to the Jewish tradition by sort of bringing forward these matriarchs as as forces to be reckoned with, like in your art. And this is one of my favorites and one of the ones that appears in the Omer calendar of biblical women. So tell us about this image of Miriam. I would love to hear your your vision of this of this depiction of Miriam.
Sure. So sometimes I kind of write like little poem statements
Mm.
that kind of flow out of me, and it just in one go. And it just I don't even sort of even sometimes edit it. So this painting had one of those kind of statements. So this is Finding Home 77 Miriam. It's from the Finding Home series. And so this is the poem statement that goes with this painting. She led all the people into Israel, out of bondage, into freedom, dancing with her tambourine. Miriam, who nourishes the tree of life with water, packs her bags once again to travel yet another journey into another immigrant land. The emerald green of brocaded memories weave. The yud of her tefillin sprouts, this time the tree of her future, promising to fulfill another transition and to find another home, maybe just one more time.
Mm.
So this is my grandmother or my great grandmother with the sari, which has become the talit with the long strings, kind of
Mm.
like like vines kind of spreading out behind her and getting tangled up in all kinds of things. And her hand becomes the tefillin that becomes like a yud symbol that becomes the tree of life.
Wow.
And she's and like this is the story of the Jewish people. This is the story of many kinds of people. Like I think there's so many communities that don't really belong in one place and they have transitioned to another place. So, but it is also the story of us Jewish people, where we've never really belonged in one place and we've always had to leave and go to another. But I think this is also a story of many kinds of people. We talk about owning land and claiming land, and I don't think there is any such thing, because the land sort of used to belong to one person, then it belonged to another, and it transitioned to another, and you have to adapt as you move. So this business of like saying this is my land, I think we would have to leave America and give it back to the Native Americans, if we had to think that way. So I think this whole thing in the Middle East also it's just why I feel people can live together and make each of these lands their own instead of fighting for it and claiming that I came here first or you came here second. So in this case, Miriam leaves with her bag one more time for whatever reason to find another land where she can probably pitch her tent. And that's the condition of this is the human condition, I
Yes.
feel.
I find the suitcase so evocative because it's an item that sort of brings this biblical image into the present. We all know about our ancestors with suitcases, and And when I look at this and I think, where is Miriam's drum? And then I realize, well, it's in the suitcase, you know. And I'm just really struck by that, and that image of uh, Jewish journeying and transition, as evidenced in this suitcase. And I love that Miriam is
I want to
connected
say
to.
that this painting, I just want to mention this. This painting was bought by a cardiologist. No, sorry, a cancer, um, uh, you know, uh, doctor in Pennsylvania hospital, and it hangs in the lobby of his clinic, which treats women with cancer.
Wow.
So I think like he purposely like was intentionally. It's just I'm just a great privilege that it hangs in a place like that because he said I think this painting will give people some kind of hope. He's also put up the painting. I just wanted to mention that because I felt like sometimes my paintings get into situations like this, which is very interesting for me.
It must be amazing to have your art brought into context like that, and then it touches many people in this, sort of in dialogue with the place that it's in.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Um, I can talk more about this, or I can move on to the next image because
Let's see what the next one is. I'm really curious.
yes,
Ah,
yes. So I put up some of the images from your book so we could a little bit talk about this. This also has like a poem statement. Yes, it's on the cover. This is I know one of your favorites too, and the editors and the publishers also told me that there was no problem selecting this for the cover of your lovely book.
it is one of my favorites of your art.
This is Vashti, as you know, it says on the top of the painting. This also has like a poem statement,
Hmm.
which I'll be happy to read out if that's okay.
Please, that'd be wonderful.
So this is Finding Home number 89, Vashti, from the Finding Home series, but I have a sub-series from the Finding Home, which branched out into Farishte. And Farishte, and the previous painting, Miriam is also part of that. Farishte means angels in Urdu. So I just made each of these women in the Torah kind of like angels, and they wear these sort of Persian winged angel
Hmm.
wings that they almost look like swords. So they're almost like warrior angels.
Oh,
And
wow.
they can ask difficult questions this way. So Vashti was cast out in the original story, as you know. She never comes back, right? But now she looks in. A
Uh,
black and white setting from yesteryear, postcards from another target, a chessboard of genocide, the near Tamid or eternal flame of a lost synagogue, a palace of another dictator, smokestacks of your ancestors' crematorium. So there's that little chimney over there, which is kind of snuck in the painting. I searched during my journey, but cannot find. How can they erase without a trace? I wonder. Now more than necessary, along with her dignity, will she restore yours? So here's the chair of a overthrown dictator with blood across the chessboard of genocide, which is like a chessboard of war. There's like the cracked walls and the bullet, ridden walls of a war-ridden home or interior of whatever. But she's looking in like kind of like Alice in Wonderland. She's kind of and her eye is like just drawing you into that space, and she's like that home, that little space becomes like today's newspaper. So when I pick up the newspaper, it's like this is somebody was killed, that one's warring over there, that one's invading something. So this whole house became the picture of that, and she's looking into this newspaper, and but there's a little bit of hope. I always like to keep a little bit of hope, like tomorrow. So the near Tamid is still burning, you
yes.
know, it's burning. So okay, maybe there's some hope.
Hmm. If it's all right, I'd love to tell you some other things that I see in this
Yes,
painting.
absolutely.
It's really powerful to hear you talk about it, and I've always been very, kind of chilled by the smokestack in this painting. That connects, the story of Haman to later Jewish stories of persecution. But one of the things that I see in this painting is that Vashti has now grown so big that she no longer fits in the story. You know, that I see this very much as a feminist painting, right? In that, in the story, you know, Vashti says no to the king, and so he dismisses her, right? And he dismisses her precisely to set an example for other families, right? That women shouldn't be able to make their own choices. And so in the story, she becomes a kind of victim, right? But she's actually much larger than that story, right? And her figure has become much larger than that story, and has inspired resistance. So I really look at this Vashti and see, oh, she doesn't fit in there anymore. She's much bigger than that story, and I find that really inspiring.
Right. And also she's like a little, like a watchdog.
Mm.
Like, you know, she's like your conscience.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, her eyes become like this ever-seeing eye of almost like God, like looking down on you and saying, well, I see what you want to avoid.
Yes.
And so, you know, I'm here to remind you, larger than life, like you said.
Mm.
And I think, yeah, like Alice in Wonderland, she's grown. She doesn't fit in the story, but like in a way, she comes back and she's not to be forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, you think you got rid of me, but like, you know,
I am back.
kind of your
Yes.
conscience. Yeah, I'm back as your conscience.
Wow. I love that. I love that. And I love that the wings uh, contribute to that sense of her as a kind of an ongoing messenger of, you know, freedom or resistance or uh, identity, or however we want to interpret Vashti. I think that's really wonderful. Wow.
Thank you. So we can go on to another image if you'd
Yeah,
like.
let's do, as we do, I just want to say that there's something about your paintings that feels like the illumination in a manuscript. You know, almost as if it's the illustrations for the Torah itself. And I'm just really I'm thinking about that as I look at your beautiful borders and lettering. You know, it feels like a text at the same time that it's art.
Well, I mean, I want to say about my several years ago when a rabbi approached me in my town, actually, when I first moved here in 2002, and said that my work is good for, I was doing like other kind of more nostalgic work, which was talking about my background and trying to come to terms with my Indian Jewishness and telling stories which are more nostalgic. And he said, your work is very conducive to studying Midrash. And I thought it was sort of very religious. And I told him I wasn't. I mean, I'm a contemporary artist. And he says, it's got nothing to do with religion until he introduced me to Midrash. And I
Mm.
like, it is one of the most spectacular things I could have ever wished
Uh,
for to happen in my work, because I feel it's not, I mean, it is coming from so-called religion, but it is about recycled mythology and how rabbinical tradition, and now with feminist rabbinical tradition, how things are interpreted and reinterpreted in such a, I mean, I think it is so intellectual, and you know, it's got nothing to do with religion, but it's got so much to do, it's kind of a recycling of life in a way. It's like a, it's kind of stories that never ever get old.
yeah.
Like these stories could be relevant like 1,000 more years from now, because it's, in so many ways life repeats itself.
Yes. Yes, as you know, Midrash is something that I care about a lot, and I really see this work as standing in that tradition, even if in a different way, you know, than our ancestors might have written or depicted it. It very much feels in that Jewish oral and literary tradition of expanding the text using our own imagination. You know, this feels very much like it is part of that tradition.
Right. I mean, like I studied a little bit with you a long time ago. I want to maybe study again someday, because I feel like feminist rabbis like you kind of see so many things that, you know, other rabbis see, but not, you know, in a different way. And that is what is interesting to me, because my work is very feminist and it talks about, that's why, I mean, I've done some men in the Torah, like I've feminized Joseph, or
Mm.
like Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael, but as women, as like a more feminine kind of trends, transnational kind of trans kind of person, where I'm talking about them, but at the same time, I can't get away from the power of femininity and feminist dialogue.
Yes. That's so interesting. Yeah, I'm going to go back and look at those paintings with that eye. That's really powerful to me. Let's look at the next one. I don't know if is the next one is yes, is Chava. This is also one of my, if I had to pick, a top three, this would definitely be in my top three. I love this painting. And I'll say more about why I love it in a minute, but please tell us about this. This is Chava or Eve.
Hava or Eve, yes. Well, this was actually, I don't have a poem statement for it. I think because it was more, this painting was very spontaneously like, I sometimes take all the symbols, like she got the apple from the tree, the snake in the tree. And so I was thinking, wow, she becomes the tree. Because in a way, even though she took the apple from the snake in the tree and ate it and changed the course of what was supposed to be, I think she changed it in a way that she makes the story more rooted.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so because she becomes more rooted, she is like these, and the many women in the tree are her many children,
Mhm.
that the many generations coming, actually, in a way that she imparts the knowledge to from day one.
Yes.
And so she could be any one of them, she could be all of them, or there could be the many coming generations, because even though she was like supposedly the first Eve, but before her was Lilith. So maybe that's her and Lilith, together in the tree, kind of come together, in
Mm.
a way, because Lilith kind of screws it up anyway, and then supposedly, according to more paternal, I mean, kind of more patriarchal dialogue.
Yes.
But I think she does the same anyway in the end. Like, she eats that apple she's not supposed to. So she becomes this tree. She's spreading the tree. For me, is a very wonderful symbol because it spreads out into the sky and reaches up above as much as possible, but then it's still rooted in the ground. So it's like this duality of life, like it's pulling upwards and it's going down too at the same time. So I love tree symbols. I love painting trees a lot because I think that they're the most wonderful things on our planet. One of the, I love animals too,
Yes.
but I paint animals a lot too. But I think trees are just like, so they're like the yin and yang, like rooted at the same time reaching up. Possibility is endless when you can reach up and down at the same time.
Yes. Absolutely. I want to say a couple of things that I love about this painting, in addition to all the wonderful things that you just shared. When I first saw this, I thought of the ways that trees are often associated with the divine feminine in the ancient Near East, and that by making Chava into the tree, you were actually revealing a subtext and layer of Genesis that one might not necessarily see without your painting, because you're pointing out to us that Chava is the tree; she is the source of life. Right?
Yes,
She is the one who the one from whom spreads out the abundance, and and by depicting Chava and her generations in this way, I feel like you're definitely sort of making that reality visible. Another thing that I noticed here is that there are 7 faces in the tree, and 7 is a very important number in the Kabbalah, and it's also the number of the Shekhinah, of the divine feminine aspects of the deity. So, I also saw this in some way as a painting of Shekhinah, although,
yes,
it's clearly Chava.
yes. I've done this a while ago. So when I was studying with several rabbis at that time, I'm pretty sure that they said all this to me, and this was ingested, and it's kind of stayed. And so yeah, the 7 was, I forgot to mention that it is because of the 7 importance of 7. And
Mm.
it could be also connected 7 days in the week. Like 7 is an important and amazing number, but yeah, definitely connected to Shekinah, which I think a lot of my work is connected to Shekinahs, the presence of Shekinah.
Will you
Uh,
say a little more about that?
Yes, sure. I think that when I first studied about Lilith, and I was, it was like, first I was introduced to her as being like a negative force, till I learned, I studied, I did more of the feminist readings of her, including yours. I have the Lilith essay that you had written a long time ago, and so these kind of learnings that of like of looking at Lilith in a different light and seeing her also as a Shekinah, and
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
also learning about Shekinah, like all my life when I was younger, not having had this kind of deep, because girls didn't even have bat mitzvah in India and countries in Iran and those kind of countries. Only boys had bar mitzvahs.
Hmm.
So later on, learning about this sort of midrashic studies, and um, I think I I I was always under the impression that God was male, and then this whole Shekinah being introduced to me
Hmm.
as being like, wow, and then connecting it to the feminine power in Hinduism and Buddhism. In Buddhism, there's all those different kind of Tara. There's the Buddha, but then there's the green Tara and the red Tara and the white Tara and all these different kinds of uh, you know aspects of Buddha and the wives or the consorts of Buddha that are kind of Shekinah like. And in Hinduism, all those goddesses with the many arms, like they are all pretty much very Shekinah like. And I think like studying later on Sanford Draub's book, which talks about the connection between Kabbalah and Indian philosophy, where he says, Hinduism probably was the oldest religion in the world and predates even Judaism, and
Hmm.
that and since Judaism was manufactured by Abraham in the Middle East,
Hmm.
this whole concept of one God, and Abraham shattering the idols in his father's shop and saying no more idol worship, but just like one God. I think all those people over there, from what Rabbi Burton Wysotsky, when I was studying with him, was telling me, and I read later on that it must have taken a long time for those people to give up their idols,
Hmm.
because they had all the sun idol and the moon idol, and they must have a lot of the fertility idol and all these kind of things that these women probably kept in their tents in the Middle East in those biblical times. And then to be suddenly told that you can't have any of those, it I think it I mean, yeah, we know that it took a long time for them to get rid of them. And even later on, actually, is it Rachel? I think Rachel, when her father comes to look for you know,
Yes,
I,
she
yeah,
takes her father's Tevraphim, his family gods or his family idols, with him,
steals,
with
yeah,
her, right? Yes,
yeah, and steals it. And then he comes to look for it, and then she like hides it and sits on it and says, "I can't get up from the cushion because I have my period."
yes.
Right? And so like even then, like it's mentioned in so many ways and forms. So I think the Shekinah is in so many different traditions. I think,
Mm. Mm.
Miriam in Judaism and Maryam in Islam, is they have their prophetesses too. And I think, and the Hinduism and the Buddhism and the, every religion has this sort of female aspect of God, which I think is very interesting. So universalizing that, but studying about Shekinah from our Jewish tradition was very, very useful to me.
Wow, that's really powerful to hear because, there's been such an absence of that, that texture to Jewish art. It feels so important to have it
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like it's kind of patriarchal, but then like Lilith is demonized too when you really look at it. Kind of say why she doesn't need to be. She was just asking for equality.
here. Yes. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that this is an Eve that very much can be in dialogue with Lilith, rather than be dichotomized with her. I wanted to share. It's actually a comment from one of my students, but I wanted to share with you, the beautiful spirals in the background that feel maybe a little bit like divine presence. Someone looked at them and said, "Oh, they just look like cells." And in that, in some way, this is like Eve at the root of our bodies. And I was really touched by that. That in some way, this is a picture of our origin. and the
They look like, I'm sorry, they look like
like
cells.
cells, like in the body, like molecules,
Oh,
like
yeah,
little,
yeah.
yeah, like little, almost as if we're seeing the process of generation from one generation to the next. I thought that was kind of a cool
That's
observation.
interesting. I mean, I love it actually, Rabbi, when people come up with interpretations like that. I don't
Mm.
like it to be static and say, no, it doesn't mean that because that's what I meant. I
Yeah.
might have meant it as something else. For me, it was the breath coming out of these
Oh,
the teaching or the breath. But
beautiful.
like the fact that it's the cells that gives it another interpretation, which totally love.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
I will quote it as say somebody saw cells of the human, of the human body in it. And I love that.
Me too. Wow. Do you have one more?
Yes, so I put
Uh,
in Lilith because I
yes.
thought Chava and Lilith. So I actually wanted to show this Lilith and a couple others.
Oh,
And I
please do. Yes, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, because I thought it goes well with Eve. So she's based on the Jewish Midrashic legends, and she was the first Eve, so to speak, who was created at the same time as Adam, right? So she was not created from Adam's rib. She was unwilling to forego her equality. She took her case to God, who responded to her seductive powers by revealing his divine name. She earned her ticket out of paradise of her days, and she goes and lives under the Red Sea. And then later on, God sends like oh come on, like come on back, and she's like no, I'm not coming, and he sends Sanga and Samangala to bring her back, and she never comes back, and then this whole patriarchy kind of makes her into this demoness that eats her own kids and preys on men and kills babies and all this kind of thing that was later came on. So she's been made into a demoness or a serpent in the Garden of Eden, but Lilith made her return in feminist history as an example of female strength and mystery. So my influences in these kind of, this series of paintings is this is a detail where she's saying 1,000 years have I waited, keeping the embers of revenge glowing in my heart. She becomes any woman that has been wronged from anywhere, asking for revenge and saying, I've been waiting for 1,000 years. And this is like something which, everybody has their axe to grind in every corner of the world and has reasons to say this. So, she kind of represents all of those women, especially. I'm influenced by Roy Lichtenstein, by the drama of Indian Amar Chitra Katha comics. So I grew up with Indian Amar Chitra Katha comics that taught me, otherwise I'd never have learned because I don't have a family tradition of teaching me the stories in Hinduism,
Mm.
in Buddhism, or in Islam. And these comic books were just so amazing that they were available in English, and I could learn about the Mahabharata or the Ramayana, or in this case, it's the story of Draupadi and how she rose from the fire and how she was a dark maiden
Mm.
that was wafting the fragrance of blue lotuses in blue. And I made another painting after that. I don't think I show it here, where a blue maiden has risen from the fire, wafting, a fragrance of lotuses in bloom. So I kind of make a spin-off of these things where here a dark maiden was born.
Mm.
So all these kind of, and also of course Bollywood.
Yes.
Bollywood, I grew up in Mumbai. I was surrounded by Bollywood. My mother ran a private school for 20 years, and mostly a lot of the Bollywood kids would come to her school. So there would be like a phenomenon in front of my house every morning where some Bollywood star was dropping off his or her kid. So that pop culture sort of, which I didn't think much of at that time. And I was like, I didn't take it like, I just found it to be a little bit, not that I was interested in it.
Oh,
But it became a big influence in my life later on. And so paintings like this, so Indian Persian miniature paintings, illuminated manuscripts, they all creep into parts of this painting. And the blonde heroine in
mm.
Liechtenstein's paintings has now been recast as a blue maiden.
Yes.
And so she becomes, so you can ask me why blue, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
She's
please tell us about the blue.
so very often I look at my skin and it has turned blue. It tends to do that when I face situations of people who are stereotyping and categorizing other people who are unlike themselves. I
Mm.
therefore over the years developed many blue skin characters. This blue self-portrait takes on many roles and forms through which I can theatrically explore ancient and contemporary dilemmas. So I'm inspired by the Indian goddesses, Kali, the blue god Krishna, but also I'm inspired by Shekinah. I'm inspired by green and different kind of taras in Buddhism. I'm inspired by Islamic priestesses, like, from their traditions. I also show how these characters use their blue skin to tell or mostly retell stories. In this process of recycling, they remind me in making the work, and hopefully my audience in viewing the work, that myth making is cyclical and timeless. And so
Mm.
this blue skin has become a symbol for me of being a Jewish woman of color. So this blue, the
Mm.
sky here is no different from the sky over any other country in the world that you go to. So that blueness, that neutrality of blueness gives me a chance to belong everywhere and nowhere. And I thought about blue, why not green? Why not red? Why not purple? I thought, there's so many, I could be green and belong like the grass that grows anywhere in the world too. But I thought blue was more expansive and covered the earth at the same time, covered the breadth of the oceans. So I felt blue was more of a color that was more more universal or more expandable, so to speak.
Beautiful. Uh, I love this piece. I love that she feels like a comic book hero, but also like a very ancient mythic figure at the same time. And I love the lettering of the word Lilith at the bottom. It's made to look like both English and Sanskrit. Is that right?
No, it's actually looks more like Arabic,
Ah,
like
uh-huh.
Urdu or Arabic. It's Sanskrit has got the line. Actually, I think I have another one. Let me see. There's another Lilith that I did, which has like Lilith written with the line above, and it has got more the Devanagari or the Sanskrit script.
Uh-huh.
This kind of lettering, actually, it's Lilith. You can see it, but it looks like Arabic
Yes.
or Urdu. So I like to kind of change, letterings. I'd like to translate or transliterate different languages: Hebrew, English, Urdu, Hindi. All of these languages that I'm kind of tied to, so to speak, and I kind of like to use them to sort of fool the viewer.
Hmm.
And they'll say, oh, there's some profound word in there. In the painting called Joseph, for example, I've written the word ishq in Hebrew, when ishq means passion in Urdu, but
Uh,
I've in Hebrew lettering.
wow.
So I kind of change languages like that to
Yes.
cross-pollinate, so to speak.
Yeah, I love the word cross-pollination because it feels like you're in some way bringing the languages together. You're enabling a kind of uh, contact between these alphabets that feels really powerful.
So there is I just did a 30-foot mural of using Lilith at the Monclair Art Museum, which is going to be on for a whole year. It should come down by this September or so. It's already been on for a good part of the year. So I did with Photoshop, I took like 20 different paintings of mine with the help of my assistant, and they invited me to do a 30-foot installation in their museum, which they commission an artist once a year to come and do. And so they give you free reign as to what you want to say in that 30 by 13-foot canvas print that they make from a very large banner company in New York City. And it's one piece, and it's 30 by 13 feet. And there's other components to it too, where I've done like sculpture with one of my student interns, where those blindfolded Esther characters at the bottom are made into 3D and
Oh,
put in little glass vitrines, like little curiosities. And they are all around the steps. I don't have the image of that, but you can see it on my website if you look under installation, uh,
wow.
the installation section. So here's the same image. I've cut her out and I've used part of the blam, but I have made her also stronger with the many menorah women around her and the many other characters in my work. There's two of them on either side from two of my paintings, which I talked about learning about America, which I modeled from learning from my African American teacher in theater school, and how she taught me about the history of slavery in America. So I have her actually depicted over there on either side, where she's revealing this burning body at the stake,
Wow.
and talking about her history. And there are many other things like the blindfolded Esther in one of my other paintings, talking about blind justice, or talking about, I mean, now this went up literally a month before October 7th.
Wow.
And so just the blindfolded characters have now a new meaning to, connecting it to hostages.
Yes.
So, and there's like this another woman in there, another painting where she's riding a horse. She's got many faces. She's pointing in many different directions. Again, talking. It's from another older painting of mine where she's like on a horse. The horse symbolizes travel, but she's going backward or forth. We don't know.
Wow. I'm also looking at the Lilith figure on the top left, which with her sky halo and the plants. They look like plants to me coming out of the bottom of her. So it feels also like a kind of tree of light. And I don't know if that's water that's streaming out of her hand, but it feels like an elemental kind of Lilith.
Right. Well, I could have, I don't know how much time we have, but this is from Exodus series. This is not exactly a Lilith, but it could be, all of them could be sort of inspired by Lilith.
Okay.
Series, which is called Exodus series, which talks about Syrian and other refugees. So I
Uh-huh.
did a whole other series of works. So like the Lilith in the center is from the Finding Home series and from the Farishte series.
Yes.
But the one in the circle is from the Exodus series, which talks about um, immigrants and questions what their place is, whether we allow them or we don't, and
Mm.
talks about how and what we should think about immigrants. Um, you know, it's a big controversial subject, and but the way I present it is like just to think of them in a way, in a neutral way, not taking any sides and saying whether they're legit or not or needed, or I don't want to get into that conversation, but talking, just having people think about the fact that we are all immigrants in some point of time, and who are we to stop them from coming, or do we stop them from coming, and what is the criteria?
Yes. Yes. Wow. Well, thank you for showing us this amazing, amazing piece. What an impact it must make on everyone who walks into that building. I think I'd like to come see it in person.
Yes, absolutely. I want to come over, and we talked about like doing some more little bit study or collaboration or whatever it takes. I'd love to do that with you.
Amazing. So as we kind of wind to our conclusion, I'd love to hear maybe something about um, maybe what continues to inspire you, or what are your hopes for your art? I know that many artists like yourself, create because that's just what's in you to do, is to create. But I wonder if you have a particular hope, when you put art out into the world, you know, what do you hope will happen?
Well, I think that I want to continue to make these powerful images that hopefully inspire dialogue and transcultural understanding. But I also think I want to, I also include a few more images. I love doing commissions, whether they're public or private.
Mm.
So, for example, I've done commissions for hotels
Oh,
where, I've talked about Indian miniature painting, and even though they didn't want figures in it, but even then the style still comes through. I've done like commissions for synagogues where this is actually about Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat. And again, they didn't want the figures in there, but there's so many symbols about Joseph that came, and a matching parochet the amud that matches the parochet.
This is amazing.
I've done many commissions like this also for different synagogues. And then I've done this floor, right, for the St. Louis Synagogue. The Rabbi Susan Talvi commissioned me to do the entrance of her synagogue, which is this zodiac floor. We all went to India. She and hers, 25 of her congregation went to India with me in 2015. And so I came back, and it took a good part of the year to kind of design this with her and to make, so it's like a teaching tool. It's like the 12 tribes, the Hebrew months, the zodiac signs, and the outermost circle has all the Jewish festivals that line in, with the different zodiac signs and the months of the year.
Mm. Wow. I just have to say this is spectacular. It is so beautiful, and it reminds me of the ancient floor. And there are several ancient, right, as this one is, partly inspired by, with the zodiac on them. And to see a contemporary one so bright and powerful, I love this. I just love this.
It's done in porcelain tiles, so it's a permanent color. These kind of tiles are used inside, could be used in outdoor, indoor, anywhere. So it's like I collaborate a lot with different people who translate my work into these different mediums. I've done a swimming pool for a private home in the same tile. So I'm just saying, like, and then I just finished two children's books. These two children's books, this one just came out, which talks about the story of this little girl who comes from Cochin, India. And then the second one is called On a Chariot of Fire, the story of India's Beni Israel. I don't think I have an image on there, but I have the actual book here.
Wow.
So this children's book also just came out.
Wow.
Which is published by Levine Cavado, Arthur Levine, and
Yeah.
it's coming out in September. So I do, like, commissions like this, children's books I do for, and then I also just finished. I designed 19 Torah covers for a synagogue in Dix Hills, Long Island, and I also did 3 amuds for them for their 3 lectern covers.
Oh,
So I do a lot of these commissions, and so I feel like I'm showing you this because I feel like I want to, besides doing the paintings, which are very personal and get bought by public or private people, or go into their homes or their spaces. I also love doing commissions which are pertaining to like a larger picture, and being able to translate my work into different mediums, whether it's fabric or tile or stained glass. I haven't done stained glass yet, but that's the last one that I have. But I've done many other commissions for private and public places like this.
holy. I feel it reminds me of Bezalel, like the artist who designed the Mishkan. You're really creating sacred space with this work, and structuring people's experience of that sacred space. As Beit Kohenet means priestess house, and this very much feels like, you are Kohenet of the visual world. It's so beautiful seeing these.
And each of these ones were first made into paintings. And I studied, each of them were based on stories and topics and midrash. And then I worked with the rabbi in the synagogue and a committee in the synagogue that we would meet. Then I did sketches. The sketches are made into final paintings. The paintings are scanned and sent to be printed in a certain different kinds of fabric. And then the Torah cover maker in California actually then takes those images and makes them into the Torah covers. So there's a whole process for this, as with the floor or any other medium like that. So it's not just pretty pictures. It's just like it is thought of and connected to, like, there were different topics for each of the 19 Torah covers that were selected.
Wow. Just magnificent. Thank you for showing us all of this amazing art. And everybody, here is where you can find Siona's art at her websites here.
Yeah, Blue Like Me is a merchandise website, and Art Siona is my art website. But I'm going to stop share. Let me see. And stop share so I can.
There you are. Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you. This has been such a privilege and a treat. I mean, I have been an admirer of your art for so many years, and to get to see it in all these different forms, and also to get to talk about the way that it interacts with the Omer calendar of biblical women has been really, really special. And uh, I love seeing how it's become murals and floors and synagogues and Torah covers, in addition to the beautiful paintings that you make.
Being added into your beautiful books like yours.
And so wonderful. So I am inspired by you as a contemporary mystic who's creating new ways, new portals for us to experience the sacred and the beautiful and the liberatory. I know how important it is to you that this work document both the history of oppression and the potential for freedom.
Well, your essay on Lilith was
Uh,
very inspiring from the very beginning. I
wow,
still have it.
that's amazing. That really means a lot to me. I love that you are bringing Lilith forward. The last conversation I had was also about Lilith, so I feel like she wants to show up in our day. That's amazing. So I hope that we'll continue to connect, both at Beit Kohenet and other ways. But I want to thank you, Siona. What a pleasure to have gotten to speak to you today and to see all of this. And I know that it's going to inspire a lot of folks who will listen to this interview and see your images.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, it's my pleasure and privilege to be connected to you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here in the Mystics Room.